This video is going to be about a week late from the actual announcements of the changes to the future of Magic because I was at MTG Vegas. And when I got back, I needed to sleep and readjust my body clock. As a heads up, some of you are probably going to be quite annoyed at this video because I don't think I'm not going to voice the concerns in the same way that you probably feel them. The overwhelming feeling is, from looking at the comment section of my community posts or looking on Twitter, that people are angry about the future of Magic. And I just think that perhaps we might be overreacting a little bit. Let me begin with an anecdote. So at MTG Vegas, where I failed to take pictures or videos because I'm bad at vlogging these things, and I was full of sushi. The announcement from MSRP coming back on the main stage for the Future of Magic panel is met with rapturous applause. Blake even comments, we didn't expect that kind of reaction. People were excited to no longer be as price gouged as they currently are, I guess, and know how much something might be on release instead of roughly the price for Commander's anthologies. The applause didn't last long though. They softened rather naturally and then changed to stunned silence as we heard the next morsel about our card game addiction and the future of the game we all love. Universes Beyond to be legal in all formats, starting with the new sets in 2025. The crowd were stunned. I mean stunned. There were no boos, not a cheer, not a whimper, not even a cough. Much like myself, stood at the back of the seating area taking pictures on my phone like this one to post immediately to Twitter. None of us were really sure what to make of this information. My first assumption was that the annual or semi-annual Universes Beyond sets would now go into standard. Lord of the Rings, the coming Final Fantasy, stuff like that. The next slide gave us a 1-2 punch of context that we all needed and perhaps didn't want. We're going to have equal numbers of MTG sets and Universes Beyond sets going forward. They cleared this up with a roadmap a few slides later that looked like this. 6 standard sets, which in itself is a stealth announcement and an increase from the current 5, with 3 of those being non-Magic IP and 3 of them being Magic IP. And for clarity and a bit of context, this was the first time I've ever seen Wizards of the Coast refer to their own stuff as Magic IP. I was genuinely shocked. I think I actually was just shaking my head in disbelief. This has always been a hyperbolic talking point online that, you know, a slippery slope, that a little bit of Universes Beyond leads to this kind of thing where Magic itself falls to the wayside, or at least Magic's own canon and world falls to the wayside in favour of the Magic game supporting other intellectual properties and worlds. It's been 2 short years since the release of Lord of the Rings, a product that I often vehemently defended as a fun, flavourful and rather soulful rendition of the world of Tolkien. We have jumped from 1 draftable Universes Beyond set a year to 3, and now they go through Standard, and subsequently Pioneer 2, which means literally nowhere is a safe haven from those of us that don't want to have Space Marines or SpongeBob SquarePants in our game. And that last one wasn't a joke, by the way. They announced the SpongeBob SquarePants secret lair on the panel as well, but to be clear, that won't be standard legal. The initial wording on these screens that I took pictures of and started this video with kind of suggested that everything was going to go through standard, but what they really mean is the tentpole sets. The 3 sets of the 6 sets released each year will go through standard. That means next year we have Final Fantasy, we have Spider-Man, and we have a yet to be revealed Universes Beyond that we just don't know anything about yet. No hints at all. So let's unpack that. Let's talk about what that means for the future of Magic, the reaction online, and my personal feelings about it. Maybe I've got some form of Stockholm Syndrome, for lack of a better term. Maybe I've been bludgeoned with this stuff so much that I now just let it go. And I'm cautiously optimistic that the game will still be remarkably fun. I'll talk more about that as we get on with it. But first, this video is brought to you by Elgato. Like all of the content on my channel, I use their lights, I use their stream decks, even my new light strip in the background is all provided by Elgato. I use their stream decks to adjust my lighting overhead for whether I'm playing on webcam with EDH and hijinks, for example, or painting for the secondary Warhammer channel, or just using them to light the footage for the videos like this. My other stream deck I've customized to have 3 simple buttons on one of its screens to allow me to edit much faster by having access to the 3 shortcuts I need when cutting up and chopping up content. The microphone that I use is also through their system, and if you don't want to get hold of stream decks but you just want to have access to lights, all of it is controllable via the control app on your phone. So as you see here, I can change the lighting in this scene in real time with a slider, and the warmth and the coolness of it. Elgato's ecosystem just works, and it's incredible for everything from, like I said, creating content right through to things like painting lamps or using for your webcam EDH. If you're looking to pick up a key light which can be controlled completely by your phones, you don't have to buy into the entire ecosystem, then use the link in the description below. If you're going more full-fledged because you're a content creator or an aspiring content creator and you want to upgrade your home setup for your office, then again, use the link in the description below because it helps to support the channel. You can even go over the control center and just hit a button. It says activating scene, then my lights will change. Ready? Oh, baby, here we go. Look at that. You can do anything with this stuff. I'm going to leave it at that for the rest of the video now. God, there's so many options. Let's go to this one. I don't know what that is, but that's going to be the one for the rest of this video now. I can't stop playing with it. Yeah, that's what she said. Link in the description below if you're looking to pick up some Elgato gear to upgrade your home office. The Walking Dead secret lair was the canary in the coal mine, or perhaps the creaking opening of Pandora's box and unleashing a whole world of different magic to us. If you don't know, the original secret lair for Walking Dead was not the first Universes Beyond stuff. We had already had Godzilla skins prior to that, but what it did give us was mechanically unique, time exclusive, in a secret lair, limited run, with cards that represented actors from a show and an IP completely outside of magic and completely outside of the fantasy aesthetic. It ticked like 15 different boxes for firsts, and all of those firsts for things that people just didn't really want. And because of that absolute clusterfuck of different things that people didn't want, the conversation around it was incredibly toxic and incredibly adverse. I have videos on hating it too. But what it led to was an online conversation that was vitriolic at best. Now, it's funny because they've softened us over time. They unleashed and ripped the band-aid off by giving us bloody a Fortnite secret lair pretty soon after that. I went on record as saying there's not much further we can fall from there. That's the most cringe shit we can get. Ironically, I actually began to play Fortnite with some friends, John, for example, after the Fortnite secret lair. If anything, Magic got me to try Fortnite. Magic got me to try Doctor Who. Where do these crossovers work the other way too? Not just getting new players into this game, but getting us to try other IPs and other media. And Wizards claimed to have listened with The Walking Dead, looking to re-put them into in-universe versions in the list slot further down the line, and claiming that the way that they did that wasn't necessarily the best, even if it did sell the best. That is a talking point we're going to come back to in a minute. The Walking Dead secret lair was one of the most successful selling secret lairs of all time, and thus the door was slammed wide open, and the doorstop was made out of a huge wad of cash. Because Wizards of the Coast are the only thing that seems to make Hasbro money, so if Wizards of the Coast is making money, Papa Hasbro is happy. Now, for personal context, I low-key kind of love Universes Beyond. I've always liked mashup media. Super Smash Bros. Was my favourite game series since I was a wee nipper, since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, since I was about 10. So the idea of my favourite card game actually having officially licensed and correctly balanced, in theory, cards by the game designers behind it of other stuff like the Marvel characters and eventually, fingers crossed, the DC characters, that excites me. However, we have moved into a world where crossovers and IP references are looked down upon, kind of with a snootiness almost, a snobbiness, if you will. There is this conversation around Fortnitification, as well as the buzzwords of Funko Pops. And both of these things bug me a little bit when it comes to talking about Universes Beyond. Namely that Fortnitification for me is when a game uses references to external and differing IPs without much of a chance to explore or understand those worlds or those intellectual properties, to continue to use that term that is now giving me an aneurysm. The example is Fortnite, right? Where you don't often explore the worlds that they are touching into, you simply slap on a skin and do a floss stuff. And that's not to say Magic doesn't engage with that Fortnitification to some extent. The secret lairs are probably the best example of that, where it's just a handful, a smattering of cards that give you a simple glimpse into an alternative world. The Arcane secret lair is a funny one because some of the art was literally just screenshots from the TV show because of the, I believe, fast turnover of getting that secret lair out the door. That's a rumour, not a confirmed thing about the turnover. Meanwhile, when Wizards of the Coast get time to actually engage, they get space and scope. So for example, multiple commander decks in the case of Warhammer or Doctor Who, or in the case of Lord of the Rings, an entirely draftable set that was a great limited environment that had a depth of mechanics to explore the world of Tolkien and the classic trilogy of Lord of the Rings. That's when we see less a Fortnitification and more an honest engagement through the medium of magic. That said, on reflection, I do have to say, for example, the Warhammer decks, I feel like they could have gone a bit deeper. So I didn't watch Doctor Who at all prior to the Doctor Who decks coming out. And because the mechanics were so interesting and weird with the suspending, time shifting, and all this sort of crazy weirdness, with a song drawing from the bottom of your deck, for example, It made me more interested in Doctor Who. I ended up binge watching. I only got to like towards the end of Matt Smith's era with some episodes later on that I'd watched on recommendation. I'll finish it eventually. But what I'm getting to is that the Doctor Who decks really did evoke the weird quirkiness of the time travel of Doctor Who through the mechanics that we saw. I did feel that the Warhammer decks did engage for the most part, but they did feel, on reflection, and I love those decks, don't get me wrong, like a series of references. The best example is probably the Imperium deck, because it's trying to cover so much ground with so many references to so many parts of the Imperium and the different factions within it, the 14 different Imperial factions within Warhammer, that really the depth of like engagement with them on a mechanical or thematic level is a little bit more shallow, just by the fact that they've got to cover so much ground in so few cards. I read Vistic Studies, the Magic Man Sam, for those of you who are old enough like I am. I read his Substack about this recently. He was quite scathing about Universes Beyond. And he talked about this idea that sometimes you have a card in the command zone from a Universes Beyond product that simply allows you to look at it and feel the reference and nudge the person to your right and say, hey, do you get the reference? Do you remember X character from Y IP? And the thing is, that feels a little bit dishonest in some ways. It's the Funko Pop argument. These are all just Funko Pops. These are all just future landfill plastic useless objects. And it's not true, because they are game pieces that will evoke something, some sort of mechanical or thematic identity through what the cards do in the game or make you do in the game. If we were to say that the way Iron Man performs in the command zone is some Funko Pop proxy or simulacrum of what Iron Man does in the comics or the movies, then that argument can also be made for any Magic the Gathering character, for Chandra or Teferi or any beloved MTG character. The game itself and how it works and how it makes you feel as you play it, the things it evokes, the mechanical to thematic crossovers and links, those things all matter, because the art of Magic is more so in the gameplay than it ever really has been in the lore or the theming. And that brings me to my next point on this meandering thoughts out into the ether, is that as much as I love classic Magic art and classic Magic canon and lore, I've got Richard and Port tattooed on me, and next to it is the Weatherlight, because it was always the medium through which we explored these worlds when I was younger, right? It was the Starship Enterprise of the Magic world. But in calling it the Starship Enterprise of the Magic world, it does hint at a larger problem with Magic's canon and lore, is that it is just trope upon trope upon trope, which isn't necessarily bad, because Magic at its core is a game, and the way the game engages with those tropes is way more important than the way the novels or short stories do, in my opinion. I don't think Magic lasted 30 years and will last another 30 years more than this. That's right, I don't think Universes Beyond is going to kill Magic. Unlike every other fucking YouTuber on this platform, if you do a quick search of Universes Beyond this morning. But I don't think it's Khan and Urza, the Weatherlight, the Sagas, the Phyrexians and the Eldrazi that keep Magic ticking. Hell, I'll be the first to sing the praises of the Eldrazi and the Phyrexians as new inventions within Magic's canon and new villains that I absolutely love and have an attachment to, but both of them are amalgamations. They are not simulacra, but they are the pooling of other conventions. The Phyrexians themselves are body horror elements that are present elsewhere. The Cenobites of Hellraiser, the Borg of Star Trek, the, dare I say, even the Iron Hands of Warhammer, but I guess one came before the other, who knows. But there's all those sort of things all molded together to make that character. And it's the same for the Eldrazi. They aren't this new creation. They are an amalgamation of previous literary genre conventions. They are the Eldritch Horror. They are the aliens beyond space and time. It's not truly unique. And that's not a problem to me. I think the mechanics of the game and the gameplay, I think the way we engage with those tropes to make them fun to play with, to try and take a literary or media trope and transform it into a gameplay element, things like Survivor and Dustborn, for example, literally getting through combat to the other side gives you a small amount of respite in your second main phase to do a thing. It's not mind-blowing, but it's a cool way of doing it. And that's what Magic's always done. It's had many a cool way of doing that thing. So for us to get really upset and pearl clutchy about the idea that once you remove the Magic canon from Magic, it's no longer Magic, it doesn't sit well with. And I've always thought I was at least a mildly Vorthosy person. I've always cared about the background information and lore and characters. I just don't think that the reduction of them or using other ones is inherently reductive of what we've already had in the past and will have ongoing. Now, all of that said, we do have to address the elephant in the room of that we've gone from 1 draftable set a year to 3 draftable sets a year of Universes Beyond stuff, and previously it only went through Modern. So we are on what some people might call a very fucking slippery slope. And I want to acknowledge that and agree with it. I am scared to where we'll get to. Mark Rosewater has said that this design or release cadence is for now and not forever. That can be interpreted in one of two ways, right? That this is an experimentation to see where we go, and it could lessen, but of course it could get more. We could get to the point where there's only 1 Magic tentpole release a year. I guess on the darkest timeline, because although I'm saying I don't think we have to like hold Magic's lore on a pedestal, I don't want it to go fully because it is part of the game's legacy and I love the history of the game. I don't want to see it go completely, but on the darkest timeline we could see it gone nearly completely. Further to that, the 50-50 cadence of standard releases doesn't take into account Secret Lairs and Commander product. We may even see a time sooner rather than later, even next year, where there's more Universes Beyond than there is non-Universes Beyond. Universes within, if you will, where the Secret Lairs outnumber the other way around. So we have 3 of each set, and the Secret Lairs for Universes Beyond might outnumber the normal ones. Hell, a lot of the normal ones are kind of Magic canon agnostic anyway, right? Where they just represent like a spaceman flying through space. It's not really Magic canon. So let's address that issue. The going through standard. Is that a problem? Mark has said quite explicitly that straight to Modern sets were speeding up the flux of modern metagames and influenced how many new relevant cards enter the format. This change was made to address that. And as a corollary issue, he says, because we had less experience with marketing or making straight to Modern cards, our ability to balance them wasn't as efficient as it was with Premier sets being standard sets. He also went on to say that having Universes Beyond go straight into Modern meant that new Lord of the Rings fans would be thrown straight into Modern if they want to play competitively, and that wasn't ideal. All of these things I can get on board with and agree with. The idea that they had to build things straight into Modern, I believe, probably comes from the fact that Modern Horizons was the best-selling Magic set of all time prior to Lord of the Rings. Modern Horizons 2, maybe. I'd have to look up the exact numbers. And for that reason, someone higher up was like, put Lord of the Rings into Modern. Make the cards playable in the most amount of places possible without, damaging the sanctity of Magic, and thus we'll get a best-selling set. And we did, by the way. Marcus said that the best-selling Secret Lairs were Universes Beyond, I believe Walking Dead. The best-selling Commander decks were Universes Beyond, I believe Warhammer. The best-selling draftable sets in the last couple of years, or ever, Lord of the Rings. Again, Universes Beyond. The idea that they don't have to immediately try and balance things into Modern is a good thing in my eyes. One of the biggest threats to Magic wholesale beyond Universes Beyond, or more so I would argue, is power creep. I think Modern Horizons has done more damage to Magic than Universes Beyond has in the last 5 years. Again, they're not exclusive or mutually exclusive, right? One can be true, that one is bad and the other can still be bad. I'm not saying because Horizons is bad, we can't put any attention on Universes Beyond. But the point I'm getting at is I'd rather the Universes Beyond stuff wasn't also designed with the plans, the ideas, the cadence, the attitudes that Horizons is. I think Horizons is very damaging for all facets of the game. I won't go into that too much in this video, I've done many a video on that. And thus, putting them through standard does mean that they will be able to lessen the impact of those cards on older and eternal formats, and just generally in Magic by not making the One Ring. Now, of course, there will be cards in Spider-Man and Final Fantasy that will be probably too good. There will be Shieldred levels of good, or Fable the Mirror Breaker levels of good. Not sometimes intentionally to make a face card. Cloud and Sephiroth need to be pushed a little bit to sell packs and to be the face cards that are impressive and exciting. But beyond that, Wizards of the Coast also don't always succeed. Fable the Mirror Breaker probably wasn't designed to be as good as it was in Neon Dynasty. It was not a face card, for example, although it was a rare harkening back to a classic mythic, I guess, arguably. Either way, there will be cards that will be of those power levels, but I'd rather that than the One Ring, Bowmasters, Fury, Grief, or Nardu. And I also think this whole pushing newer players towards Standard is a good thing. I think Standard's in a good spot right now, and if they continue to keep up that rhythm and also make Standard a appealing thing to play in, I think that's good for the game. I've always said that having 60 card constructed alongside Commander is the way we keep the game alive and going, regardless of whether it's Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson doing the combat. So they're doing this because of their market research. They're doing this because everything is selling really well when it's Universes Beyond. And it's hard to argue with that. They are out to make money after all, and the decisions will be aimed around what grows the game, both financially and in terms of number of players. It will undoubtedly alienate classic players. So these are classic. Players that played before the Universes Beyond seismic shift in the last 4 or 5 years. But I do think the alienation is exaggerated by the loudest people online. Those saying that they're selling out and quitting the game, I think only a small portion of those saying that will actually do that. I just don't think that this is the end of Magic. I can't help but be excited to see how mainstream this pushes Magic to be, how many new people enter and how exciting Magic becomes because of it. And I say that selfishly as a content creator attached to this game, parasitically perhaps, if you were to say it in a cynical way, but also as a player who wants to see the game prosper because it's the game he's loved since he was a kid. The one way this could be an existential threat is, in a sense, because the new players that come in don't stick around. They come in to play the novel concept of Spider-Man or Lord of the Rings or whatever it is that drew them in, and those players leave afterwards. They come in to pick up the Marvel Secret Lairs and the Marvel draftable product. They play the pre-release even. They even start to play Commander in it. But when they start to see Darth Vader and SpongeBob and such, the tonal inconsistency of Magic might just not keep them around. They bought in for Marvel. They didn't buy in for Peppa Pig. But I also don't believe that's the majority of people coming in. I would assume that's less than 50%. A lot of people understand the idea of crossover IPs and crossover games that use multiple IPs, which is what Magic is becoming. There's just no two ways about it. That is the future of Magic now. I think the majority, or even vast majority, will understand that when they're playing as Peter Parker, they may have to fight against the main characters from Family Guy. And for some people, that does psychic damage to them. But for a lot of people, they probably just don't give a shit. And it's absolutely okay, because the fun is in the game itself more so than whether or not Family Guy is in it. I am weirdly optimistic about the future of Magic. I'm not 100% happy about the direction, because I do like where Magic was in the past, but I also recognise it was not sacred, and I also recognise that the game going from strength to strength is not a bad thing, even if aesthetically it's not quite what I would have wanted 5 years ago. I'll end on this sort of like anecdotal point that I've heard floating around, that like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or similar have never had to compromise on their own thematic identities to get success. And the point I'd say to that is that, A, I think Magic is about to have more success than, say, Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think you'll ever get to where Pokemon's at. But B, Pokemon had a lightning in a bottle IP, a lightning in a bottle aesthetic and feel that captured children's imaginations at just the right time to allow an explosive start. Magic never really had... It was the first trading card game, absolutely, but it never appealed to the kind of demographics that allowed it to explode like Pokemon. And beyond that as well, Magic has a history, similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! In some ways, of being like that, of hopping around IPs, of hopping around genres is probably a better way of putting it, of going from horror to wonderful Wind in the Willows and back again. Like, that has been part of Magic's kind of identity for a long, long time, so it kind of suits it. And it's also the best system for it. I'm not hugely familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh's gameplay like these days, and Pokemon I played a bit of a couple of years ago, but I think Magic's rule system and the way the rules interact with one another and how it works is much better at allowing you to evoke different game systems and worlds and themes than those games are. If anything, Magic's rules being the best of the card games in my humble opinion, it allows you to engage with those things in ways that other card games would really struggle to do so. So there's my slightly low energy, slightly like, I am frustrated, I am tired. There are elements of this that I really don't like. I don't know how divisive it makes everybody, how there's a division in the community. And I also want to say that I completely get that you might be pissed off and upset by this. That's also valid. I recently tweeted about how if someone's excited about Final Fantasy, that's not the place when they're saying they're excited to come in and tell them how much you hate Final Fantasy. That's dumb, right? When I get excited about the Warhammer X online, I don't need people telling me how bad they hated the Warhammer X immediately after. But that's not to say that criticism and frustration and upset isn't valid and useful. I'm just saying, like, pick a place to voice it. That's all when it comes to that. And I think you having your own separate threads, your own separate videos, your own separate tweets or Reddit posts or whatever, voicing your frustrations about this is completely and utterly valid. I just do hope that people can slip down from that edge, perhaps, maybe listen to a little bit of reason that Magic isn't going anywhere and that this isn't the end. that magic isn't dead. If anything, magic is just going through a seismic shift, a transformation that some people might not want to continue on with, but others may continue on with and very much enjoy. And that's it. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. If you're looking to pick up any Elgato gear, use the link in the description below. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I think I'm going to get some really hateful shit for this because I don't agree with everyone. And I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.